Hi everyone, and welcome to the video. Today we are doing a music teacher Q&A. So I asked on Instagram, it's at Becca's Music Room, and just asked for some questions, anything related to elementary music teaching, and got quite a few. So I'm going to go through and answer these today, so you can go grab yourself a cup of coffee, even though it is now fully 7 o'clock at night, or a tea or a water or whatever it is that floats your boat, and we're just gonna hop right on into it. So the first question was actually, I was talking about how I have been sharing my lesson plans every week, and so the first question says, where do I find the video you're referring to with the 4th and 5th grade lesson plans? On my YouTube channel there is a playlist. It's called What I'm Teaching This Week. This year's is called What I'm Teaching This Week, like season 2 and this year's date. And then there's also one from last year where you can see literally everything I've taught, ever, basically. And so there's tons of different things on there, and you can check them out there. Let's see. Number 2 is from Sierra Taylor, and it says, how do I get my upper elementary students to want to like music class more? This I feel like is the golden question. I got kind of a couple of different versions of this. The first thing that I would do is to figure out what they actually want to do. So typically I find that this question comes from people who are newer, maybe new to a school, and their kids maybe haven't done music the way that you want to do music before, and that's okay. So figure out what they're interested in. They might be really interested in games, they might be really interested in instruments, and then kind of go from there. So the first month of school I really test out different things. So I tried a bunch of new games this year. I tried, different instruments, and just kind of figuring out what they actually were into, and then going from there. Also, I'll say that the more you can let the kids pick, the better they're going to do. So for example, we did an activity where they had to create a second verse of a chant that we were learning, and I wasn't sure how it was gonna go. We did it in groups, and they ate it up. It was super simple. I gave them very little guidelines, honestly, and they just thought it was the greatest thing. They loved working together. They loved being able to be creative and creating something themselves, and I think it just made them feel really musical. Also, things that work with my kiddos, doesn't guarantee it'll work with your kiddos, but things that'll work with my kiddos. They love chants, so those are usually good because they sound kind of like raps. They love anything that involves moving. My kids love dancing, as long as it doesn't seem too weird to them, if that's an okay thing to say. Some folk dances are just very different, and other ones are a lot of fun, and so it just kind of depends. Silly songs are usually where I like to start as far as singing goes. Anything that's just kind of silly and ridiculous, they will eat up. So we've done Pizza Pizza Daddy-O, we've done One Bottle of Pop. Those are 2 really good ones. I have videos of both of those, so I'll link them down below. Other favorites, instruments. So the more you can get instruments in their hands, the happier they will be. Also, the better behaved they will be, because you can always take said instruments away. One fun thing that I have been doing is Little Kids Rock. It is a mostly free program that includes tons of different modern band things, and I'm kind of wading slowly into it because it's very different from how I prefer to teach. But I will say that even with that, one of my favorites has been, you can take the drum parts, so you can look up a song, you can find the drum parts on their website, Little Kids Rock, and then you can have the kids play the drum parts on their bodies. So we'll do the hi-hats here, and they're and then we'll do stomping for the bass drum, and patting your legs for the snare drum or stuff like that. And you can really build those up and start simple and get harder, and then you can play the song so they can hear the song. And there's lots of modern songs that they are listening to on the radio. Do make sure they're school appropriate, but still. There's tons of those kind of things, and then you can translate that to the instruments. So even if you don't have a drum set, I don't have a drum set, but you could do the hi-hats on the tambourines, and you could do the snare drum can be the sticks, or whatever. And so you can kind of evolve that and have a whole thing. You could have the kids come up with their own. You could have them pick a song off of the website to do. So maybe you do one as a class, and then they pick one as a group that they can do, and they can perform it. Those kind of things are really going to help. Again, see if you can make them the active music maker, and then you're just kind of there as a byproduct. That's going to do the best. As far as singing, if you can connect it to a game, that's always going to do better. My kids have loved, I will link a video down below where I mention Say, which is a rock, paper, scissors game they loved. And then also we did Big Fat Biscuit recently, and that was a huge hit. They've been begging me all week to do it again. So I will link that video down below where I talk about those two things. I also have a whole blog post about what I do with 5th graders. So there's one that's more like classroom management, like technical wise, and then one that's more lesson related. So I will link that down below as well. And I hope that helps. The main thing with the older kids, especially if you're new to a school, especially if your style is different than what they're used to, is to have some grace and just come up with ways that they can be active music makers without pulling teeth. Like if I were to go to a new school, I do mostly like, you know, Kodai and folk songs and that kind of stuff. But if I were to go to a new school and my 5th graders weren't used to that, then I wouldn't make them do it. Honestly, is that terrible? Probably, but I wouldn't, you know, if it's gonna be like pulling teeth, I would rather them enjoy music and do something different that's productive. Even with my kiddos, my plan for this year is we're gonna do pianos, we're gonna do ukuleles, and we might get to guitars. And that's like my overarching plan for this year. I don't know if it'll all happen. I don't really know how I'm gonna teach those things, but you know, we're gonna work on it. So I do know that I'm very lucky that I have access to those resources, but you know, just think outside the box. Think outside the box. Sunshine Daisies 15 says tips on how to get older students into their singing voice. Start with call and response songs. Those are really good because they just have to echo after you and it's less threatening. Again, pick things that are silly. And then older kids still love things like sirens and things like that where you're just like woo woo and all of that sort of stuff. And you can also do little things that help. So I pull a lot of like choir things for this. I'll be like, can you sing this, but like pull it straight out of the top of your head, and stuff like that helps them to get kind of more up in their singing voice. Those are gonna be the best things, and just practice. If you can do songs that they want to sing, you're gonna be more likely to get them to actually sing. Are there songs in their head voice? Probably not, but you know, give or take. The next one is Row 77 step, and it says rhythm games for older elementary or middle school. So I have a whole video coming out about rhythm games very soon, but just as a little preview, some of my favorite ones, Poison is a great go-to. I do this all the time. Basically you do a pattern, they do the pattern back, and then you pick one to be the poison. If they do the poison, they die. I said that recently and someone took very much offense to it. If you don't want to say that they die, you don't have to say they die. They can just be out, that's fine. My kids think it's hilarious when I say that, and they love to drop dramatically to the floor, and so that's why we say it, especially with the older kids. And you can do it with rhythm cards. You can have one that's the poison and then maybe have a couple of those so that it will come back out. Asteroid has been the biggest one recently. That's a game I have. The level 1 is free, so it's like quarter notes, 8 notes, and rest, but I will link those down below. And so you put a rhythm up on the board or hold it up if you do the printable version, and the kids walk the rhythm. So like if it's ta ta ti ti ta, then they would do ta ta ti ti ta, and they stamp the rhythm. And then when you hit an asteroid, it's a paper that says asteroid, then they have to go back to their home base, or they get hit by the asteroid, and whoever's the last person is out. And it is hilarious and they love it, and it is a great time. I have Who Has is also a really good one. This one's really simple and they do it in their class as well. I love it as like a review activity or like a wrap up at the end of class. Basically you have some cards and they all say, I have a rhythm, who has a rhythm. So the kids read off their things. So it says like, I have ta ta ti ti ta, who has ti 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 ta ta. And then whoever has ti 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 ta ta would then read their rhythm. So that one's really fun and easy, and they do those in their class as well, so they're usually familiar with it, so that's helpful. Madeline G. Martin says, do you have a lesson plan template that you use? Yes, I have one that I use for myself and one that I turn in. So my turned in one is through our learning management system, which I will not suggest, and I also will not share that lesson plan template because one, I can't, and two, I don't like it. But my lesson plan template is in. I have a really, really cheap lesson planning template set on TBT. It's currently only PDF, but what I actually did is I've been digitally planning. And so I've been using it in the Notability app, which I did pay like $8 for, but it is worth it. And seriously, I think I've paid for 2 apps ever. Notability, and the other one I think was, is it Tenuto? It's a music theory app. Those are the only ones I've ever paid for in my life. So if I say that it's worth the $8, it is worth the $8 because I went back and forth. But you can also print it out, and that's what I did for a long time. So I will link that down below. I think it's really cheap, and there's lots of different versions in case you have different ideas. Mama Maori says, how long do you see your students? I only have 30 minutes and I feel very limited. Oh, it's the worst. I am technically have 45 minutes, except I'm supposed to stop 10 minutes early and take them all to the bathroom. So I only have 35 minutes, assuming they come on time, which, you know, never actually happens. So we end up with about 30 minutes of actual music time once we get, you know, over all of that stuff, and it is very limiting. That little, like, because I used to have 45 minutes, that little difference makes such a difference. It's a little bit of time, but it makes a huge difference. Callie Poor says, classroom management tips when you have 30 kinders in a class. I'm struggling. Oh, that is way too many people in one classroom, especially when they're 5. So full disclosure, I do not currently teach kindergarten. I haven't in a couple of years. But the main thing with kindergarten, we just don't have them at my school. Although my first graders are pretty much kindergartners. The main thing with kindergartners is to remember they have the attention spans of like a fly. And they also don't know anything about school. So unless they went to pre-K, they don't understand things like how to sit down, how to raise their hand, especially at the beginning of the year, how to walk in a line. And so you have to remember that they just don't know anything. Number 1. Number 2 is really look at your lesson plans. The biggest thing I would tell you is do lots and lots and lots of movement, because if you can channel their squiggly wiggliness into movement, then they're gonna do a lot better. So we always start with a movement activity, usually something that wears them out pretty good. So like a good dance, just, you know, all sorts of different things. Looby Loo is a good one that's really easy. You could even do Go Noodle videos, like I'm not above that, but something that's gonna wear them out. And then we will kind of alternate between what I call like high intensity and low intensity. And so what I mean by that is we'll do an activity, you know, high intensity, they're like up, they're moving, they're doing things. And then we'll do a low intensity where they're listening, they're singing, that kind of stuff. And then we'll do higher, and we'll kind of go up and down. They get up and down, we sing, we dance, we do up and down, and never do anything for more than like 5 minutes. After 5 minutes, you have lost them. So we're really just thinking of how you can build things. So if you're gonna sing a song, maybe you sing it first, and then you do actions, and then you stand up and do the actions, and then you do instruments with it. And that's, you know, taking one 5-minute activity into like a 20-minute activity, and into like a 10-minute activity. And then maybe you watch a video that goes along with it, or play rhythms along with it, or whatever. But just make sure they're moving, make sure you change the pace often, and remember they know nothing. So you have to be very, very careful and explicit about what is okay and what is not okay, and make a very big deal about it. People tend to be like, oh, they're in kindergarten, I'm gonna cut them slack. Don't. Kindergartners don't need any slack, because kindergartners turn into first graders, turn into second graders, turn into your 5th graders. And when they're in 5th grade, you want them to already know how to do everything. So when we are in kindergarten, we are like, you are doing everything correctly the first time, and really focusing on those rules and procedures and all the movement. Hannah212 also said everything kindergarten. So that was hopefully a little bit helpful as far as classroom management goes. Also with kindergarten, the most effective thing you can do is have them go sit in the corner. Not like nose in the corner, but make it so they're outside, but they can see you. So they can see you having fun without them. They can't handle it. But along with that, with kindergarten, you really want to focus on the basics. So things like steady beat, high and low, all of those sorts of things, you know, fast and slow, and those like opposites, and just really getting those things in there. And then like your singing voice, so just really hitting those things really, really hard. Those were the only concepts I would teach in kindergarten. Now I don't teach kindergarten at all. I also got a question from someone else about steady beat. So with steady beat, you're gonna do that in kindergarten, and you're gonna do it a lot, and you're gonna do it in all sorts of different ways, because you can start with, you know, following me. So that's how I started, even with my first graders. I'm like, all right, follow me. And you know, that can be a really easy thing that you can do. And then from there, you can walk the steady beat. You can play a drum and have them walk to the beat. You can have them play a drum and have them move their body to, you know, tap their shoulders. You can play along with songs that you do. You can have them play instruments along with the steady beat. You can do all sorts of different things. But the main thing is that you're going to be working on steady beat for a long time. Time before they're really going to get it. So like, be patient and just like really try all the different ways that you can do it, because they're little and they need lots and lots of reinforcement. And it's so important. If they don't get it in kindergarten, it is hard to learn later. Hannah also asked what to do with kids who don't like or refuse to sing. So we already kind of addressed this. Call and response songs are great. Having songs that they are used to. So maybe you're playing rhythms along with a popular song, that can help them, you know, be more encouraged to sing. And sometimes it's just talking to them. Like, I had a kid who would not sing, and I asked her about it, and she said, oh, it hurts. And so through that, I was able to figure out that she was having a hard time getting up in her head voice, and so it was hurting because she wasn't using enough breath. And so we were able to talk about that and kind of figure it out. One thing that I do is just, you know, make it as silly as possible, because they'll want to do it. Repeat the song over and over so that they'll learn it really, really well. And then I'll just walk around and listen to them, because sometimes they just don't even realize that they're like not singing. I don't have a huge issue with this at my school, mostly because I've been there for so long. I know some of the other teachers in my district do things like you're only allowed to play the game if you're singing, and if you're not singing, then you don't get to play the game. That's always a pretty good incentive. Or you can't play instruments if you're not singing. Yeah, so get creative. And if they're older and you're new, again, I would just not stress about it too much. But especially if they're younger, or if you have been there for a long time, you know, implementing those things and just making it a normal thing that you do in class will help. Seal 9664 says, ¿Tienes material ¿Tienes material gratuito para compartir con los profesores musicales? Do you have free materials to help share with music teachers? Yes, I have a free resource library, so you can, I'll link that down below. You can join it. All you do is enter in your email address, and I will send you the password to it. And it has tons of different activities. I also add to it every few months, so make sure that you check back and are, you know, on the email list so you get all those information. And there's also some free activities in my TPT shop. So if you go to my Teachers Pay Teachers store, you can actually go on the side and you can click like sort by free, and then you can just look at the free things. I have lots of free things. So go check all of those things out. And then, oh my gosh, this YouTube channel and my blog, like, there is so many different lessons and ideas and activities on this YouTube channel and on my blog. So you can, you know, spend, I mean, you can spend hours and hours and hours there, but you can spend quite a bit of time at just using the search feature on those two things to look for whatever you need. And I've got lesson ideas, lesson plans, and everything. And then the last one I have is dalman.i. How to create a yearly outline to give to administrators, subplans, first year teacher. Okay, so first of all, if you're a first year teacher, then I would highly recommend you sign up for my free elementary music teacher, free new teacher, it doesn't have a good name, free new teacher music course, where we talk all about, you know, teaching music. And so on there we have tons of information about it's just me talking to you in videos. So we talk about what to teach, how to come up with that long yearly plan, how to teach rhythm, how to teach melody, like basically all the basics. And then I have lots of links and lots of freebies and lots of other things to go from there. So it kind of like gives you a good place to start. So definitely check that out. In there we talk about long-term planning, and I also have a video about that, so I will link it down below. But basically you want to start with like, okay, this year, what do I want the kids to learn? If you don't know, then figure out kind of where they are, grab your state standards, and then kind of work backwards. Like, okay, if they're supposed to know these rhythms by the end of the year, you know, at what point am I going to teach each one? Now, if your kids are behind, it is entirely possible that you might not hit all of the rhythms or all of the whatever is in your state standards. But it's more important that the kids know concepts well than that they know lots and lots of concepts. So work backwards from there. Think like, okay, you know, how long do I need to do something? I usually estimate about 6 to 8 lessons per concept to introduce it. So we'll do, I see my kids for a week at a time. So we'll do 1 week, so 5 lessons where we're prepping it. And then the next week we'll do a couple of preps. I'll introduce it, we'll practice. And then the next time I see them, so that's 10. The next time I see them, we will do a lot of practice, but they usually have got it pretty down by then. So that's kind of, it takes a long time. It takes a long time for them to like really solidly know something, and that's okay. So that's gonna be your best bet, is to work backwards like that. And then also a sub binder. I don't have a great sub binder template. I got something free on Teachers Pay Teachers. I'm not in love with it, but it's fine. In your sub binder, you really want to make sure that you have your schedule, a map of the school, and then any procedures that they're going to need to know. So like, I have to take my kids to the bathroom, so I have to say that. I have to take my 4th graders to lunch, and then I watch them during lunch. So that's kind of a complicated thing. I make sure that that's in my sub plans. And then after that, I always have a couple of different options that they can do that are all so easy that if you have never heard anything about music in your whole entire life, you could still do it, because a lot of times your subs are people who have never done anything. So things like writing activities, coloring activities. I am not worried about standards when the subs are there. I'm like, I will teach the standards, you will like read a book and color. Really, really easy things. Get some books that are fun for elementary music, that are simple, and have some writing activities. I have tons and tons of sub plans. I will link those down below so that you can look at those. And they're all things that like literally you print it and then you're like, here, and then you leave. And they're so easy that literally anyone could do it. So I hope that was helpful. I think I hit every question that I got so far. There were a couple that were kind of like similar questions. You got a lot of questions about kindergarten and 5th grade, which I think is really funny. So hopefully that was helpful. Thank you guys so much for watching, and I will see you next time. Bye.